Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mr. Sulkowski. I teach AP World, AP European History. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be going over my Quarter 1 PowerPoint, which is 80 slides. It's a lot, but it basically covers all the major concepts from the beginning of the year up until probably like October-ish. That's like Quarter 1 for most schools, or for my school at least. And then I'm going to be doing this in chunks, and then what I'm going to do is try to do my Quarter 2 and then Quarter 3 reviews for my students. For anyone else out there, if you are not one of my students, I have my PowerPoints that are linked on the bottom of the page. It's for an alternate site that you can get if you like the PowerPoint or you want the PowerPoint for yourself. So if you like the video, like and subscribe. Again, my name is Mr. Sulkowski, and this is going to be a review of Quarter 1 for AP World History, or WAP. So some of the main concepts are here. These are general keys, key definitions you want to know going forward. Things like Christianity, Islam are important, Hinduism, those are the major religions leading into WAP. Then you have the big empires such as the Huns, Mayans, Gupta, you have the Reconquista, the Ottoman Empire, we're going to cover a little bit of the Renaissance, and then it kind of ends pretty much with the Age of Exploration, right? So you kind of start from the major religions of the world, all the way up to the Age of Exploration would be the beginning and end. But this is going to be in a couple of parts because I'm going to break it up in a couple of parts just for reviews for you guys. Okay? So again, my name is Mr. Sulkowski. If you like the video, like and subscribe. Jazz hands, and let's continue. So universal religions basically implies religions that have universal appeal. There are more than one religion in the world, but the main ones are Hinduism, Buddhism, and Christianity. And Islam. Islam comes later. There is Judaism, but it comes before your actual course starts. But it's kind of linking into Islam, and it links into Christianity because they're all monotheistic. And universalizing religions just means universal religions. Now there are other religions, places in Africa and South America and the Americas at the time. But they're more culturally based religions. They're not universal, meaning they cover large scopes. Now, universal religions also imply that they are linked to trades. So Silk Roads is one of those important things that connects Afro-Eurasia, right? So Africa, Europe, and Asia at the time. And that's why it's also important to know the Silk Roads, because that facilitates major religions. To know Afro-Eurasia in the West, Romans was pretty much Christianity. In India, it was Hinduism, or earlier called Brahmanism, with Brahmins are priests, but it's earlier form of Hinduism. And in Asia and China, it's primarily Buddhism. You can find them all mixed around, but pretty much you need to know your area of Africa, Europe, and Asia, and what major religions kind of connect to those areas of the world. So you have Christianity, if you want to look up the map over here. India would be Hinduism, and then here in Asia would be Buddhism, and then Confucius ideologies are also important over here. In Africa there are, but they're the Bantu religions, which is more of a culturally isolated religions, that they're tribal based. They're important, but they're not something that kind of stems all around the world and is linked. And in the Americas you have the Mayan religions, the Inca religions too, but they're not universal religions in the sense that they cover large scopes and go along trade routes. Christianity and Buddhism are the ones that they like to mix in and blend in to do comparisons if you get a religion DBQ, LEQ, or question, and they have some 6 main features to why they're considered universal religions. Okay, it has diverse populations. You don't need to be born into a certain sect to go into it. It can move from one area to another very easily. It's adaptable. It doesn't have to stay in the same traditions. You can kind of see as religions go from one area to another, different cultures adapt different parts of it into their religions. Engages new believers and missionaries. They want to spread their message, so that helps facilitate the spread of these religions. A community of followers of the religion. A sense of belonging, and you don't have to be from any economic background to be a Buddhist or a Christian, so that sense of community is important to help facilitate these religions spreading to different places. And also they're linked into major empires that helps facilitate that. One of them is Christianity. Now for Christianity, you want to know some major terms such as the martyr, which were the earlier versions of, not martyrs, but they were the earlier people that were Seen on the outskirts, Christians were not welcomed into the Roman Empire at first, and one of the things that got them popular was this idea of a martyr. Martyrs are people that basically give their life up for their beliefs, and instead of it being something that the Romans stopped Christianity from spreading, the martyrs actually gave a symbol for Christians, earlier Christians, to continue the message of Jesus, and thus this is actually something that a lot of Christians look towards to actually support it going further. Viva Perpetua, she was one of the earlier ones, but martyrs are important because they are the ones that really are become symbolic versions of Christianity that help spread and facilitate the spread. After Christianity became popular and it was adapted, you have churches. The churches during this time are called Basilicas. Okay, so that's one of those terms you want to know, generally speaking. They would compare maybe basilicas with mosques or something like that. And you want to know that it has a dome-like shape and it has maybe a cross on top, or some of the ideas to kind of incorporate with the symbols of Christianity to do a little general realization. The Huns were important because they basically were what broke down the Roman Empire, knowing coming in. This is not, you're not really going to get a lot of the Huns because it's kind of one of those quasi, your course starts, but they're kind of like something mentioned as a background. But if you get a Christianity or you get a Roman Empire, you would want to, and as a DBQ, you can go this far back as a contextualization, or LEQ, a contextualization of the issues of the Roman Empire and then the fall of the Roman Empire, and you can add this as other outside people such as the Huns came in and really broke apart what was the actual Roman Empire, and which was a centralized empire that supported Christianity. Okay, because you're going to start your course off in the year 1200, but the problem with that is that if you have something to write about that can kind of go before the year 1200, you want to have some contextualization. Remember, contextualization is in world history, you can about 200 years before. And if you need something to kind of start off as a good foundation to kind of get you a background, this is kind of the stuff that's leading up to the year 1200, which is the year of your course starts off on. Now, the Roman Empire survived in the Byzantine Empire. And now this is actually something that your course does start off with. That's why it's kind of important to understand the fall of the Roman Empire in the West doesn't necessarily mean that the Roman Empire was done. The Roman Empire was so vast that it actually covered West and East, but the Huns came in and they broke apart what was in the Roman Empire here, but it still survived in the areas of, especially of Turkey, modern day Istanbul, or the Byzantine Empire. Now, why is that important? That's because the Roman Empire that survives in the East is basically called the Byzantine Empire, and under the Byzantine Empire, you want to know it's the survival of Christianity through this ideology. It's the survival of the traditions of Christians for a period until the Ottomans come in. And the Ottomans are predominantly a Muslim empire that takes over the Byzantine Empire. And that's why you would think Turkey, Istanbul, that area of the world is kind of Islamic today. But this is kind of like the facilitating the story behind the Roman Empire. It splits into two. The East, where Europe is in a decline, and it survives for a couple hundred years longer in the Byzantine Empire. One person you want to know with the Byzantine Empire is Constantine. He renames, he actually has Constantinople, and Constantine is basically in charge of the area that would be modern day Turkey and Istanbul today. Okay, so that's kind of the location that you're kind of talking about here, and that's kind of here in this actual map on the bottom. If you go back to the map earlier, this is the west. This would be the remnants over here on this side of the rest of the Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire at the time. The Byzantine Empire is important because the one thing that you need to know is that the ultimate of ultimate basilicas would actually mean the Hagia Sophia, and that is modern day Turkey. Now, the Hagia Sophia is interesting because it's actually a blend of Christianity, but later on when the Ottomans come in, they actually convert the Hagia Sophia, which was a basilica for Christianity, into a mosque. So you see actually the pillars being raised, the inside, the decor is changed, and it's one of those symbols that you can see as a transformation of one area that was predominantly Christian to another area or another empire coming in, which was predominantly another religion, which was Islam. So So there's some of those blending of ideas and concepts. In your course AP World History, it's thematically approached, okay? They're not going to go into such specifics of every little detail of Christianity or Hinduism or Islam. But what it's going to do is going to be very general with the questions, and then also when it's time to do your writing, it's going to be more comparison of themes, of environment, of economics, of religion, of politics. How does this empire compare to this empire politically and socially? And that's why you want to know the general ideas of those things, and then how they would blend in. So that way you don't have to study every little thing in world history that ever happened. It's too much. You generally study the themes, and you'll have a good background going forward. Now again, the Silk Roads is crucial. The Silk Roads are basically interlocking trade along Africa, Europe, and Asia. They facilitate Christianity, Buddhism, and Brahmanism. Brahmanism later is called Hinduism, located in India. You have Christianity in Europe, and you have Buddhism in places of northern India and in Asia here, okay? I have a map practiced on my other PowerPoint and my other videos. You want to know your sections of the world, where they link up, and the major religions that go along with those sections. They're not going to be asking you what's the capital of India. They're going to say general areas, right? South Asia, right? Or Southeast Asia for the Philippines, or East Asia for China. They're not going to say China, especially earlier on if it's a question earlier in world history. They say general regions. Now it's called the Silk Roads because it's located, it has road structures, but it also has some water structures here. So if it's a Silk Roads, it's basically talking about the land and then a little bit of water. When it's only predominantly water routes, they're talking about the Indian Ocean Trade Network, and that's later on in history, okay? And it's important because the Silk Roads are called the Silk Roads because the primary luxury good that is traded on it is silk from China. But everything is traded on there, and then with trade, it facilitates knowledge, it facilitates language, it facilitates religion, it facilitates politics. All those major sprite words facilitates it with trade. People don't connect with other places if there's no economic means to do that. And then when there's an economic connection, other things kind of transfer with it. And religion is one of those important things that kind of rides along with that, along with Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism and Islam. Now, Hinduism was more accessible to believers. The major work that you want to know from Hinduism is the Bhagavad Gita. It was basically the story of Krishna and Arjuna, and basically it has more of a conceptual designs of like gods that play into like a thematic approach of drama. The religion that has ethical and teachings and believers is Dharma, and the language that they know is Sanskrit. Okay, so you want to know your major religions, and you want to know the major text of those religions, and then you want to know maybe what they're written in, or their codes, or their ethics that go along with it, and then that way you can kind of get a general grasp of the religion, and then be able to compare it to other religions, or answer questions on the multiple choice section of it. Here, the Bantu people. The Bantu people are what are known for sub-Saharan Africa. That's another location you want to learn for on your AP World maps. Here, the southern part of Africa, or sub-Saharan Africa, they had what was known as the Bantu people earlier on in the beginning. And these people last up until the age of exploration and then the age of imperialism. There's still people that are there, but they're a major power in sub-Saharan Africa at the time. They have their own culture. Their culture is passed down orally, right? And you want to know the history of those people going into that section, while Afro-Eurasia is really just connecting and traveling and trading and doing all this other stuff. There are other parts of the world that are still continuing on. Remember, the worlds right now is still existing in different parts of the world. You're going to have a primary focus more on the Silk Roads because there's more information, but you need to know about your Bantu people of South Africa, meaning what's happening in Africa. You want to know what's happening in the Mesoamerica too. So this is the part in the Americas before Columbus, pre-Columbian times. Mesoamerica would be the parts in Middle America. They featured river civilizations. Teotihuacans were the present-day Mexico. They created city-states which were cities that were so powerful they almost kind of took in charge of the state. They celebrated with pyramid designs, and Teotihuacan was basically the form of their empire prior to the introduction of the Westerners or the Spanish and the Portuguese coming in to these areas of Middle America. The Mayans are important. They're expanded from 250 to reaching their peak in the 8th century. They come from the Yucatan Peninsula, which would be this place here. So the Teotihuacans are here, right? And then the Mayans are here on that area too. So don't get those kind of confused. This is the Yucatan Peninsula. They're agrarian villages, meaning they're agriculturally based with food and growth. They're advanced civilizations. So one thing that always comes into history is that they're not. But this is the Mayan calendar, the creation of pyramids, the ideas of sports, of religions, and so forth. The one thing you want to know in AP World History prior to the European contact is that the religions in the Americas did have sacrifice, of human sacrifice, and that's something that was very not done in Europe, obviously, like modern day too. So when they came in, they were connected to these vast empires. They were stunned by the magnificence of them, magnificent buildings and architecture and gold and jewelry and mathematics. But one of the clashes was their religious ideologies, and the human sacrifice was one of those parts that you can see as a really different ideology that they believed here in the Americas, but when the people in Europe and Africa and so forth, it wasn't really part of their culture or religion. Now, the story of Islam is important. Islam comes later on after Christianity. It goes with the monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Jesus, right? And then Islam is after. Okay, those are the major monotheistic religions. Hinduism is multi-god, right? Multi-deities. And then Buddhism is like quasi-god. Buddha is a god and not. Later on he's revered as a god. Earlier on he's just seen as a person that reached enlightenment, and that's kind of like your school of thought. So those are some of the major things you want to think about going forward. Each religion has its prophet or its main person. Each religion has its work, right? Its actual text, and each religion has its moral code. So those are important things to do because a lot of those relate, and that's good talking points, that's good understanding points, and or you can learn what sections that you need to know of the major points of it. Now Muhammad, the story of Muhammad, he was born in Mecca, 580. He's known as the last prophet, right? He's through the Islamic view, he's the last communication from God to people, to humanity, and the Islam is based off of ideologies of Christianity and of Judaism, but it's a continuation of it. Okay. Now their major work is the Quran, which you want to know really well. They're monotheistic; they believe in one God. After the death of Muhammad, he really never named a successor, and that's what really splits the age of Islam after. People believe that it should be kept in the bloodline of Muhammad, which are called the Shiite Muslims. And then after this, Muhammad never really named someone to take over the religion after as being the head of it, and that's when the Sunni religion kind of came out of it. So Islam breaks into these two branches, and it's basically over the leadership of those branches, and people either think it's the Muslims either believe it's the people that should be in the bloodline of Muhammad, right? That comes into later on. You see it like the caliphate, the actual bloodline. And other people, or the Sunni, just believe that any good Muslim can kind of partake and take over or continue the message of God, since technically Muhammad is known as the last prophet. And those are the schools of thought kind of emerging out of Islam going forward. Originally, it's been taken over Abu Bakr, which is Muhammad's father-in-law, after his death, but then it splits into these two factions. One of the Sunni and the Shiite. One thing that they love to ask about Islam and the split is that one thing that connects both of the religions is the Sufis. Sufis are basically the mystical spinning dervishes, so forth. So this is one of those mystics that's seen in both religions, both sects of the religions, meaning both sections. And this is one of those relating, connecting factors, or just general questions they always ask you guys. Okay. again, if you like my video, like, subscribe, hit that, like button, jazz hands, going forward, with jazz. So, a powerful Meccan clan, the Umayyad Caliphate, which was a Sunni dynasty, remember the Muslims, was one of those ones that kind of came in, and they were ruling in the places of Damascus, and they basically were pushing so much further that they actually even reached parts of Europe, and they actually led to, they were beaten in the Battle of Tours, but they also took over the Byzantine capital of Constantinople, and when Islam is rising as a major power, Christianity was part of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire split. Then it became part of the Byzantine Empire. It was left there, the Christianity. And now, as Islam is becoming stronger, with the empires that it's kind of getting backed by, it's what kind of finally breaks down the remnants, the last piece of the Roman Empire or the Byzantine Empire. So that's why it's important to understand the stories of these religions, but how they intertwine in the empires going forward. Now this is the major empire that you want to know coming in forward, which is the Abbasi dynasty. After the Oman Muslims fell, Abu al-Abbas, or Abbasi dynasty, came in to become the strongest, the most well-known Islamic empire with strength behind them. He founded the Abbasi dynasty, eventually moved the capital from Damascus to Baghdad. In the 900s, Seljuk Turks migrated into the Middle East from Central Asia. They adopted Islam and built large empires across the Fertile Crescent. In 1055, the Seljuk Turk Sultan controlled Baghdad while keeping Abbasi as the figurehead. So the Abbasi dynasty kind of is the strongest one that kind of comes in, that solidifies Islam as a major empire. Then when the Seljuk Turks, or another group, come in to places in the Middle East from Central Asia, they take over what's remnants of the Abbasi dynasty. Why it's important that the Seljuk Turks come in is that when they come in, they actually adopt Islam as their religion. And now the Turks are the ones that take the idea of the religion of Islam to the next major empire coming in. And that's the one that comes in and basically later on becomes the Ottoman Empire and takes over what will be the Byzantine Empire. Okay, so that's a little bit of the storyline you want to get down. You want to break down the empires, you want to know those people from those empires, the main ones, and then you want to know the concepts that kind of are linked through those major religions going forward. Now remember, this is a quick little version of the major ideas you need to know, but I'm going through like all the history of the religions kind of quickly, but I'm telling you the major empires and the major ideologies and the major people that will be potentially popping up on your AP exam. This is not the full PowerPoint of the whole history of these civilizations and religions, but it is a quick little scope of them going forward and some ideas to kind of recharge your batteries and pick out the main ones that you might not know and just study them going forward. Now what's happening in India would be the Gupta Empire. This is a major WAP concept. You want to know the Gupta Empire, you want to know that if they're saying the Gupta Empire, they're meaning present-day India. You're not going to get India unless it's the age of imperialism and they're talking about Gandhi or something later on. They're going to be pretty much primarily talking about the Gupta Empire, and you want to know that that's located in modern day India on this section here. That is the biggest empire known in Indian history, so you want to know that empire. In India, it was hard to overtake. The Muslims did come in and began to push them out, the Seljuk Turks. Remember the Muslim Turks now? And under the Sultan Mahmud, they pillaged much of the north, and basically the Sultan, the Muslim ruler, defeated the Hindu armies. Some sultans left these Rajas in, these local Hindu rulers. And remember, this is a little bit of the history before your course starts, so I don't want to just jump in and say, yeah, there's Hindus and sultans and, Muslims and Ottomans and Sunnis, and you're going to be like, where did all these people come from? I don't know anything about them. So this is a little bit of the backstory of the beginning of this PowerPoint prior to the year 1200, before you come into the course, to lay a foundation of the names and the people and some of the stuff that's happening. That way when you go full throttle in the year 1200, you have some understanding of the history before. Okay, just starting world history in the year 1200 is good in the sense that you can have less to study for, all this information, but it has a con to it, which you don't know really a lot about the foundations and the backgrounds of what's happening prior to year 1200. So that's what this is. It's like a little bit of a contextualization before your course starts, so that way you have a good foundation going forward. And that's why the year 1000 is here. You're not going to get the year 1000 as a question, but you want to know some of the history before, so you know some of the names and are familiar with it. And this stuff kind of carries on going forward. That being said, this is going to be part one of the review. I'll start off with the Middle Ages in Europe, going for the next part, and we'll continue taking notes. Not taking notes. We'll continue doing the actual PowerPoints over my YouTube channel. And if you like it, like, subscribe. Again, these PowerPoints are going to be available in the store below. I'll send you a link if you want to actually have the PowerPoint on your own. And yeah, hope you liked it. Jazz hands, and yeah, have a good day, guys. Okay.